Okay, Greg, do you have the agenda then where you can put it up?
I do. It takes me a minute since wasn't able to get in the meeting until now.
Okay. Okay, Greg, do you have the agenda then?
Just a moment.
Okay, so um, we're ready to go ahead and start then. Mr. Slayton will call the meeting to order and then lead we don't have any action coming out of closed session, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flag, followed by a moment of silence.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead. We do have a quorum established. It is 7:17 p.m. and we have returned from executive session. At this time, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay. Now we'll have a brief moment of silence. Okay. All right, Dr. Wright, if we have 3 people who provided public comment that you're actually going to read, since we had to present on WebEx tonight due to air conditioner being out.
Right. Okay. The rest of you can mute. That would be helpful with the noise. Okay. The first one is from Sarah DeVee. And it says, huge thanks to all of the efforts of the staff and administration to get our kids off to a safe return to learning. The procedures in place at Hilltop have been amazing, and we are very glad to have our second grader there this year. The communication from the high school has been spot on as well, and transition to online payments, parking, schedule changes, etc., have all been seamless and easy to use. Thank you very much for listening to the parent and teacher community about starting school on time and in person while simultaneously offering the virtual experience for those who need it. Great job, AISD. That's Sarah DeVee. Then there's one from Jennifer White. I want to commend all staff at Argyle West, from kindergarten roundup to picking up car tags and 2 days of car line. Everyone seems so organized and enthusiastic. I appreciate all the smiles. My family and I are praying for a successful, safe year. We appreciate all your hard work. Thank you, thank you. And that's Jennifer White. And the third one has some of this chopped off in the printing, but I'll do the best I can to get it all on there. This one is from Christy Hennigan. Dear Argyle School Board, welcome back to school and thank you for having the courage to start our school year on time. We recognize the many changes that you as a district face in the classroom, and we are grateful for your leadership and commitment to our children's education and safety. While we can see wearing masks during the routine times during the school day, it was clearly stated in the back to school protocols that when it is impractical for masks or face shields during athletic or extracurricular activities, they are to wear them entering and exiting facilities and practice areas. We have a daughter on the cheer team, and she has expressed that wearing a mask during the entirety of practice has been very difficult, and it is not certainly exerting themselves physically and vocally, and the mask is creating a challenge to train safely, in our opinion. These athletes need to be able, when exerting themselves and wearing masks while practicing, is keeping this from happening. It is also a distraction that can lead to other issues when focus and attention is being taken away from a routine or cheer movement when fiddling with a mask becomes the focus. We are asking direction to allow those who do not feel safe wearing a mask during practice to be able to remove it. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. And then there's a piece of the wearing a face mask that's listed here from part of the UIL summer program. In compliance with the governor's executive order regarding the wearing of masks, high school and all staff will wear masks while on campus except during during, and then that part got chopped off. Masks should cover the student's nose and mouth. When it is impractical for students to wear masks or face shields during athletics or other curricular activities, students and staff will wear masks when entering facilities and practice areas. Masks include non-medical face grade face masks, cloth face coverings, or full face shields that protect eyes, nose, and mouth. So those are the three open forum input that we received.
Okay, and I just want to thank everyone for contributing to public forum, but also reiterate that board policy is that board members and administration do not comment on comments made during public forum. So,
You may go ahead and switch back to the agenda.
Yes, please.
Okay, and just FYI,
And-
I cannot mute or unmute people. It looks like I don't have that permission, and I cannot do it if I'm sharing my screen the whole time. So you may want to look at those in the participants list, Dr. Wright, if somebody becomes unmuted, so you can mute them.
Okay.
And Greg, in regards to the donations, if you could share that so I could
Yep.
read that, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so we have the donations, and we have for Argyle West PTA $78. I'm sorry, $7,810. That is to purchase the following: $1,500 to Buddy benches for playground, $6,310 for picnic tables and benches for the courtyard. Given by AEBC, $1,398.20 to purchase 30 football helmet covers for AHS. Then Alliance Texas Corporate Challenge, $500 to support AISD Physical Education Department. Total donations for August were $9,708.20. And have any questions on the consent items? Okay, if no one has any questions on the consent items, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Make
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Yeah, it's Mr. Lowry motion to approve. Mr. Hawksworth, was that a second?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously 7-0. It's Mr. Lowry motion to approve, Mr. Hawksworth second. Okay, we have
Jeffrey.
the construction reports for Jeff.
Do you want to share that, Jeff, or do you want me to pull that up?
You can pull that up if you want. That'd be fine. Go ahead and go to slide 2. Yes, there you go. Thank you. So here we've got a nice overall shot of the entire campus. Looking from the southeast, you can see in the foreground, you can see the sodded baseball field, sodded softball field, one practice field. And then in between those, between the softball and the practice field, you can see the field events that they're working on. Got the high jump, long jump going in. Beyond that, further in the background, the black color, you can see the turf field and track. They have got all the asphalt done for the track. On the field, the black that you're looking at there, that is the E-layer. That's the cushion that goes underneath the actual colored turf that you see on the finished product. Of course, it's much more difficult to see, but even further in the background, we've got 4 tennis courts that have all been poured. All the concrete is complete. It doesn't show up in this photo, but all the lighting is now installed on those tennis courts, and they are working on the fencing, and surfacing will start as soon as the concrete cure time has been achieved. So the football field or practice field, softball, baseball field, they're watering that, of course, multiple times a day. This is about a week old picture, so it looks very good. And in about 2 weeks, this turf field will be ready for use for the students as well. Band practice field, concrete has been poured, that's complete, and the tower, observation tower has been ordered. It will probably be a couple of months before you see that installed. Go ahead, Greg. On our fine arts, they have got all of the masonry veneer done on the lower portion, the back of house that you can see in the foreground. That's got our scene shop, changing rooms, dressing rooms, and so on. They are getting ready to start on the higher portion, which is the formal auditorium space. Within that space, they've got all the large vertical ducts installed. Those will go up to the rooftop units. They're working their way from the ground up. So in about the next 3 weeks or so, we're going to see them start building scaffold in that entire auditorium space. They call it dance platforms, what they refer to it as. So they're going to construct that so that then all the high work can commence with all the overhead ducts, overhead lighting, a lot of detail work with the ceiling in there. So that will be set up in that space probably for 2 to 3 months while they do all the overhead work, working their way back down. We're currently waiting on the 6 smoke vents that go in over the stage. That's the only element we lack to be 100% in the dry in that space. All of the roofing is installed, and we should be doing very well there in about 3 weeks when those smoke vents come in. Go ahead, Greg, next slide. For our administration addition, they've got all the masonry complete on the exterior. Scaffolds are down, so it looks like a nice complete building when you go by there and see that. They are doing some site cleanup within behind the fence. Inside, they're doing tape bed and texture work that's been ongoing for a while, and they're continuing. The tile in the bathroom on the walls and floors is ongoing. And as of a week ago, they were able to get the fire sprinkler system in that area charged and completely working. So I think we're a matter of a few months now from probably completion of that area, and we can get approval from the town. We may be able to occupy this space ahead of schedule. Go ahead. Here we're looking at the new gym space. In the overhead shot, you can see on the right-hand side, you can see the concrete risers where the seating have been installed. They've actually got the risers installed now on the left side of this photo as well, the visitor's side. And they have actually started working on the roof joist again. And in about 2 weeks, that should be all decked out, ready for roofing to start. For our classroom edition, it's going well. They've actually begun on the exterior sheathing now. All of the studs on the outside are more or less complete. You can see a lot of sheathing being put on. Interior wise, the first floor interior studs are near completion, and they've begun working on the second floor interior studs. So along with that, all the MEP wall rough in. They are working on overhead runs and home runs. And we should be looking to start roofing in this area in approximately 4 to 5 weeks. Next slide. Here we're looking at the field house. This structure's is integral, so steel and masonry are going up at the same time for all of our exterior walls because they are connected. All of our MEP work in the walls goes up with that as well. They are probably about 85% complete at this time. In roughly 2 weeks, we'll start seeing them work on the roof joist and then decking. Here's just a snapshot of some projected dates versus actual dates that they pulled out of our schedule. As you can see, everything is tracking ahead, approximately 2 weeks in most cases. On the administration edition here, we're looking at several months ahead, which I expect that to actually come in and be complete a few months ahead of their original schedule. And if we get permission from the town to occupy, then we may be able to get some people moved in that space and actually start using it prior to the end of this year, hopefully. Classroom edition is still tracking ahead, so we're looking good there. We'll continue to stay on top of that. Next slide has some of our next 2 to 3 week items that we're looking at. Decking in the classroom area will be complete. Roofing should start in about 3 weeks. The field house, they should be wrapping up the exterior masonry and begin the roof joist and roof deck. The Fine Arts Edition, they will continue with their masonry veneer and waterproofing work. Inside, we should see the scaffold going up so they can start all the high overhead work. Parking lots have been completed. They're all poured. They've got to backfill a lot of curbs, but all of our paving is on the ground. As far as the gym, we've got the precast planks are set, and the roof structure rather has recommenced. At the field house, we'll see steel erection for the roof in about 2 weeks. Classroom exterior framing will wrap up along with sheathing, and then we'll be focusing all the interior work there. Second floor framing will continue. That's probably got 3 or 4 weeks before it will be complete. Exterior on our turf field, they're about 2 weeks from wrapping that up. They started yesterday, laying the actual turf itself. So it's started to take shape, and I think we'll have some photos posted on the website of that here shortly, so you can start to see the color going down on that area. That's about it. Any questions?
Hey, Jeff, I see there's a lot of good news here. Any areas we need to know about or anything that's at risk at this time?
Say that again.
On the schedule, I see a lot of good news, all good news. Are there any areas of risk or anything else at this time?
I don't have any areas of concern at this time. Everything appears to be going very well. I have pretty high confidence that we'll be able to achieve substantial completion overall earlier than expected. Hopefully that will make the move-in process next year much smoother than the last new building.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
They're getting this, and given that they had an October start date last year, they've come a long way, and it's very exciting to think that we'll get this in under 2 years ahead of schedule, which, like you said, makes that transition that much better. So, I, for one, appreciate the work that they've been doing. So, thank you.
I'll
One
make
of
sure
the
to pass
things-
that on.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll make sure to pass that on to Steel Freeman.
Okay, they really, during the closure, Steel Freeman really worked hard and kept things going the whole time. And that was very productive work time for them. And the amount of rain in the summer of 2020 was also minimal compared to what the rain had been last summer. So that was another plus for them, the weather and the closure. So they've really done a good job with this schedule.
I agree.
Okay, can you put things up, put the agenda back up, Greg?
Okay, Dr. Wrights,
10,
yeah, your report, the superintendent report.
right, 10B, okay. And then Greg is going to be talking about our current system and about Informacast too as part of this. We've had 2 days of school now, 2 whole days, and a lot of preparation had gone into getting ready for that time on the 5 campuses, as well as at the district level and in maintenance and in transportation. But we did open yesterday, and there was a lot of excitement on the part of the students and the teachers, and they were really excited to be back. We do have a large number of virtual students as well as in-person learners. We've got both activities being carried on at the same time. The mask wearing is going well. Mask means the mask, the gaiter, or it can be a face shield. And there's been complete compliance with that. There haven't been any issues. Our enrollment today, based on the 5 campuses, is 3683, and that includes the virtual and it includes the in-person. We were at the highest we got last year was about 3512, around that number. So we're around about 100 less than our COVID projection. We had a pre-COVID projection that we would grow 11.5%, and then post-COVID projection that we would grow 9.5%. But we're not there yet. And we may be, but that was our projection for snapshot date. We do have our return to learning plan on the website. It is like a manual. It is 10 sections, and all of those sections address all of the different aspects of the return to learning and all of the procedures and all of the health protocols. So that's what we have. We're involved in band, we're involved in volleyball, we're involved in football. We're following the UIL and the health protocols and being as careful as possible. So all that's going well. And Greg's got some things he's willing to present about our current system and what we have and what we would have to add on to it in order to actually have an alarm system in the buildings.
You ready for me?
Yes, go ahead,
Okay.
Greg.
So after some questions came up, I do have some numbers. This is a multi-tiered and multifaceted implementation. So with the current InformaCast software that we have right now, if we were to implement that into the rest of the campuses and enable additional notification features such as soft buttons on phones that can trigger notifications and send notifications to certain people, we're looking at around a $22,000 cost to purchase that licensing and get that up and going, and that is for 3 years of licensing with all of our current hardware. But like I said, this is kind of a multifaceted thing. As we go forward, if you'll remember some of the items that I have on our 2017 technology bond are phone system upgrades, refreshes, network upgrades, and refreshes. And so the direction that some of this is kind of moving towards is upgrading part of our phone system as well. So keep in mind, I think it's 22,400 and something, and I can get you the exact figures and the breakdown to implement that as we have it. I do have at least on my mind and my plan to upgrade that system and go even further to have additional features as well, and integration, and potentially move our phone system from locally hosted to remote hosted, cloud hosted. So if we were to enable it on all of our campuses as is and use additional notification features, we're looking at 22,000, but I will have further and progressive numbers on what that looks like also in upgrading our phone system and integrating in that fashion as well. Of course, this is a system that we're already putting in place in new school buildings to control bells and PA systems. So that's a factor to consider as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I know there's a whole lot of technical moving parts and pieces, and some of you may not completely understand if you haven't gone through a webinar what the system is, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I have a question, Greg. So you mentioned that it's $22,400 in with the current software that we had, enabling soft buttons on the phones. What does this also include? Well, let me back up. So I know that we have this system in West Elementary currently, the base system, the Bell, the PA system in West, and in the new middle or in the current middle school. Does this 22 include adding that same Bell and PA system to the other campuses that don't have it yet that we already have in place?
So after talking to the vendor, I was thinking that we would have to add VoIP or voice over IP speakers in the other buildings to take advantage of integrating into a PA system for notifications, say active shooter, whatever it may be, to trigger all of that. But we actually don't. The licensing is free for integration into those systems. It uses an analog line into the system itself. And that's a license that you get one free per physical building. So you're really just paying the configuration costs, not any additional licensing or equipment in those other buildings.
Okay, so let me ask my question again. Maybe so we don't have, this includes all of our campuses, whether it has it or not currently, a 3-year licensing agreement and soft buttons on phones.
Yeah, you can, like, we'd really have to all go through kind of a presentation altogether for you to see what all features are. You can trigger based on any networked hardware. I mean, you can trigger, it's really versatile. Somebody's coming through there. You can trigger based on almost anything. You can trigger based on panic buttons, on, scenarios of if door A opens up, then trigger this notification somewhere else. It's really however you want to customize your notifications and however you want those to trigger. Just soft buttons is only one of those options.
So does this 22.4 include the fixed panic buttons throughout the school as well, or is it all based on phones?
No, it's all based on phones, existing hardware that we have. And then if we wanted to, we could add additional physical devices to trigger from.
Okay. And the cost, you mentioned possible phone upgrades as a portion of this down the road, I guess, or network upgrades. So there's no need in those other schools for network drops or anything like that to make this system function in the schools that doesn't already have.
No, since it uses the
software.
existing phones that we have, basically you're just adding a license to allow those phones to trigger these notifications, and then you're paying for the engineer to configure it to do so.
Okay. Visually, what are the visual options?
You can customize whatever you want to flash on the screens of the phones themselves, and then trigger, email alerts. You can pretty much any kind of notification that you want, you can trigger it.
So it'll send email alerts. Does it take over screens? Do they offer additional, you talked about additional features. I think I saw on their website that they have signage in hallways that we can pay to add and things like that. So that's not part of the 22K.
So the licensing you get, it's really, you just pay if you want additional features and you don't need hardware, you're just paying for the engineering hours to set it up, any additional notifications that you want.
Okay, but those notifications you told me push to email. Do they push to signage in hallways or existing screens that we have, I guess? Can we push messaging there?
It depends on what trigger the digital signage has, if it can allow certain notifications. Like one of the, for instance, we were using a digital signage software before our current one called Industry Weapon, and we did have it configured. There just wasn't a whole lot of interest in anything. So it didn't, there really wasn't a want. Nobody, when I talked about it before, nobody really was interested and wanted to push that to digital signs. Now, of course, things may have changed. So yeah, that is an option, but I'd have to look at our existing digital signage software and see what it itself allows to be pushed into it.
Okay. So you mentioned, is there a time we could go through? I mean, there's a lot of positives to this. I think it's some sort of communication system. I think the district needs. I think it helps. We've heard Paul talk about his desire for a system of some sort. I would just like to be able to see it, and so we can, and maybe they can come do a presentation to the board so that we can
sure.
apples to apples comparison.
I can do that, or I can request if there's a overview video or a list of features, however y'all want it.
I'd say it's probably I won't speak for everybody else, but maybe it's good to have them come out so we can ask questions versus just seeing a video. You can go to their website and see the video.
Mm-hmm.
I just have more questions, I guess.
When
I can do that on my own with you and them if you want, or if everybody wants to be a part of that, that's fine too, certainly.
You tell me, I can set anything up.
I won't speak for everybody else. I'd like to see it in person.
I think if we're going to compare programs, we had Mr. Craig come out and present, virtually. It won't hurt to have someone present on their company as well.
When looking at other products, really the only thing that I see, just me, that I see that it can't do compared to some other products is effectively like the life alert button looking thing that you would carry on a lanyard. Most of the systems that I've looked at don't have that. You would trigger based on other devices. So that is the one difference that I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
And in this case, it would be triggered off a cell phone.
Yeah, or any other. That would be the most cost effective and most available. You already have every classroom that has a phone. So that's really, unless you're in a hallway, those are the only locations it wouldn't have a place to trigger something.
And my other question is, hey, Craig, you're a lot of background. I think you got 2 speakers going.
Oh, sorry.
The other question I have, Greg, is the other vendors would basically do it full service. Are you kind of relying on our current staff to implement this or execute it, or how comfortable do you feel that we can get this set up quickly?
No, it's all engineered by the same company that, or the engineer does all the configuration that works on our current phone system.
Okay. Thank you.
Greg, it's John. Has Officer Kearney had a chance to look at this, and how does it fit his needs or the request that he was making to the board?
We had a time set up, but he was unavailable to see it at that time.
But the other 2 officers did see it, correct, Greg? Joe Marcello and Bob Mastapero both saw it, right?
I believe that was correct.
Okay.
So how did they see it? Did they come out and do something, or did they see online, or how'd they see it?
It was an online presentation. This was after the start of COVID, I believed, and so we had it all.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else on Informacast? Okay. Let's look back at the agenda. Dr. Stieber will be talking about the return to learning and virtual instruction and in-person instruction and the AP scores.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Greg, do you want me to share my screen?
Oh, I automatically showed the agenda here. I can stop sharing so that you can control it.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so our virtual instruction update, so these numbers are based off of Wednesday of last week. So they're just a little bit off from what is actually happening right now. Not very much, but the number of students enrolled for virtual instruction, 734. I think as of today, we had 736. Number of students enrolled for in-person instruction, 3,013. Number of students enrolled in AISD, 3,747. Again, that was up 811. So the number is a little different as of today, but either way, we are still just below 20% of our students participating virtually. And so I've broken it down by grade level as far as what it looks like. I won't read that to you, but just the different grade levels and the number of students participating virtually. The number of virtual teachers we have per grade level. I listed pre-K through 5 because we actually have designated virtual teachers for those grades. And in grades 6 through 12, We have a mixture of maybe we have a virtual section of a course or 2 virtual sections, or we have students participating virtually mixed in with the in-person classes going on. So overall, just designated pre-K through 5 designated virtual teachers, we have 20. And then our 6 through 12, our teachers are handling both in-person and virtual. So do you have any questions about virtual instruction, what it looks like, or how it's going?
Dr. Steve, first I want to say thank you. I know there's a tremendous amount of work over the summer to try to organize this and get this implemented. So thank you, and also all the teachers involved in this, trying to reformat a new way to provide education.
Thank you.
The only question I would have is any feedback you've received after the first 2 days of either attendees or the teachers on delivering the virtual education.
Yeah, so most of the feedback has been positive. Any kind of hiccups we've had, we've dealt with along the way. We had we had quite a bit of electricity outages yesterday in the morning, just throughout the town of Argyle or within our ISD boundaries, and so just kind of dealing with that. But it wasn't anything that the district, could control. So as of today, everything seems to be going really smooth. And we seem to kind of be able to handle everything that comes our way as far as just hiccups and things like that.
Is there any plans to send out a survey to those who are participating virtually right now, knowing that they've signed up for at least 9 weeks, getting their feedback to maybe improve upon the following 9-week grading period?
We have not talked about that, but I'm definitely open to sending something like that out. Absolutely. If that's something you would like to see the feedback on, we could certainly send that out.
I think we've shown over the summer that we can, survey data is important to us, getting feedback from parents and students and faculty. So I think this is just another opportunity to get feedback on students and parents' virtual experience, as well as teachers.
Absolutely, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I would wait a while though. Let the dust settle.
Yes, that definitely makes sense.
At least 10 days would be good.
Okay.
And my feelings might be, even halfway through the grading period, or towards the end of it, feedback you can get that might be applicable to the next grading period. Definitely not right off the bat.
Sure. Yes, we can definitely get that done.
And I guess my question too, first of all, I do want to congratulate you and all the teachers, both virtual and in person. I think it's, there are a lot of people that had some hesitation in going back into this. It is the new normal. And you guys have done a tremendous amount of work to make this flow smoothly, seamlessly, at least from the outside eye. I'm sure you guys are scurrying and getting yourselves together all summer. But it looks great. The class ratios also look good. My question would be, as we go toward the 9 weeks, and again, a lot of this is dependent upon society and COVID and all the stuff that's going on around us. But what if we have students that want to drop out of virtual and come back into the in-person classroom setting? How are you going to work that with the teachers and them, coming off virtual? Let's say you don't need as many virtual teachers, and then what happens then?
Sure. No, that's a really good question. And that's one of the reasons that we're holding them to a 9-week grading period, so we can make adjustments if there are drastic changes in the number of students who are participating in virtual instruction. So we have two, the way I look at it, we have 2 types of virtual students. So we have students who have committed to virtual instruction, or their parents have committed that for their child. They want them to participate virtually. And then we have students who for whatever reason, maybe someone in their family has been sick with COVID or whatever, and they are being quarantined. So if a student is, so we have students who may be put on virtual for short periods of time because they are in quarantine because they've been exposed to COVID. And then we have students who are virtual, who are participating virtually and don't have any intention of coming back in person. But yes, that's one of the main reasons why we are holding them to that 9-week grading period, is so that we can make adjustments as needed with our teaching staff.
So do the parents have to make any type of commitment coming up on that 9-week grading period, like a week or two in advance, to give you some lead time and being able to make those adjustments?
Yes, they'll need to make a commitment and let us know whether they're staying with it or they're coming back in person.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, great job overall. Thank you.
Dr. Stewart, this is John. I got a quick, we had talked last meeting about making sure that testing and you had integrity and your ability to do homework and giving tests, administers tests to this group of students. Are you confident that that's in place?
I'm as confident as we can be that that's in place. TEA is not allowing us to require them to come up to a testing center or anything like that. So we do have to either we are proctoring it via just watching them online when they're taking the test, or we have tools in Eduphoria where we can proctor while they're taking a test. So I think we are as prepared as we can be, because this is new for everybody, right? So I think we have a good handle on it for sure.
Perfect.
I just want to throw in my son's virtual in second grade, and it's been a really good experience. He was on his first meeting this morning at 7:45 virtually with his teacher in second grade. So it's been great. They're meeting several times a day. They have small pull-out sessions, big group sessions, and using Google Classroom. Their assignments are listed. It's been a great experience.
Any other questions about virtual instruction update? Okay, so the next thing I have is the AP report, the AP summary. And so what I have provided is over the last 5 years, the number of AP students that we have, the number of exams that we are giving, and the number of students in AP courses that are scoring a 3 or better, and then percentages of that. So I think we're really proud of these scores, and especially from 2019 to 2020, just in the midst of COVID and virtual instruction kind of being sprung upon us in the spring and things like that, we were still able to raise our percentage of AP students that scored a 3 or better. So at this time, we're up to almost 72% of our students that take an AP exam will score a 3 or better. So from 2016 to 2020, you can see that that has increased tremendously. And then below that, I just included the tests that were given for this year, or for 2020 in the spring, the tests that were given and the number of scores we had for each, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the number of students we had that scored each one of those scores.
Dr. Steve, I'm trying to understand this. So the 71%, which is a growth over previous years on the students, but that's 3 and above. What would those?
Okay, Mr. Diffenbaugh, you're cutting out, and so I didn't get your question. Can you say it again?
I'm sorry. So I'm trying to understand. So the 71% of students going over 3.
Mm-hmm.
What's the percentage of test? So I'm looking down at the actual exams, and it doesn't look like that is 71% that's over 3. So I'm just curious why we look at the student number versus the test number.
So this report is actually from the College Board.
Okay.
It's what they provide. So that's where I pulled this from. So what they provide for the school summary for each district is the number of AP students who score 3 or better, 3 or higher.
Okay. And so if one student could score a 3 on one test and a 2 on another, but he or she is included in the students who have scored 3.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then my other question would be, when you're analyzing the table below and the scores, what percentage do you look for as far as the percentage of exams that are 3 or above? In other words, where does it become a concern or a bragging item for those tests taken with that given exam?
Yeah, so for me, it depends. It depends on the course. So it depends on if it's a pure AP course or if it's a dual credit / AP course all in one, because there's different things going on in those classrooms. So I'm looking at the number of students in that class that take the AP test. I think that's really important, and then the number that meet a 3 or better. I still think some of our classes that are dual credit and AP combined, since the weight of those are the same. If I'm in dual credit or AP and it's in the same course and the weight is the same, some of our kids aren't motivated to take the AP exam, and so I think that affects obviously the results of this. So I think when you're looking at courses like world history that are pure AP, and you see how that has increased over the last couple of years, those are that's our best data, I believe, in those courses that are pure AP. So, I mean, what am I looking for? I think I'm looking for growth. So, it's hard to say like cut off a certain percentage. I mean, I think in the end, we would hope that all of our kids that are in a pure AP class would be able to score 3 or better. But there are most of them anyway. But we are, continually working on our curriculum and making data-driven decisions based on the scores that we get. And so if we continue to focus every year on growth, then we will get to the point where the bulk of our kids are scoring 3 or better on this test.
Steve, it's John again. Is there any information about per class how we rank in a particular subject or class relative to a larger the state or our schools our size, or can we look at that subject by subject to see how we're doing? It seems like that may be data that would help us see how we are doing in individual courses relative to the state or schools our size or whatever's appropriate.
Yeah, so within the website for the College Board and the reports that they provide us, they don't provide it by district or where we can see other districts. So it's actually just tracking those down and seeing what different districts scored. So there's not just a quick report that we can put our hands on that. Whereas like for the STAR test or EOCs, we can easily access how different districts scored in those, and so it's not readily available with the College Board like that. So we have to just individually kind of track that down. Districts that we're interested in their performance and what they're doing with their curriculum. Those will be districts that we are interested in what their scores are and what percentage of students are scoring a 3 or better.
Or do you follow our trend year over year? I think you've done it on the top one for sure. What about as you've broken it down by class in the lower chart? Do you follow our progress year by year with that as well?
Yes, so I didn't include it in this because it's just, and it's an enormous amount of data, but
Yeah.
yes, for each of these tests, I can look at scores over the last 5 years. So, you know, for example, world history, I can look at over the last 5 years, how many students we had scoring a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, total exams, what the percentages. We can look at that for each AP course. And we can look at our growth over the last 5 years.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, would be.
Any other questions or anything else you would like to see at a later date over the AP scores or AP summary?
I guess maybe I also would be interested in that data too, the actual courses over time. And perhaps looking at some of these, you know, knowing which ones are AP and dual credit together.
Okay.
Because that might make a difference when we look at those numbers to be able to say, okay, a larger percentage of kids did not take the AP test because they're getting college credit for it anyway. Just
Right.
it might help just to interpret the numbers a little bit more.
Yes.
But I like the idea.
I can definitely get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the AP report? Okay.
Are we ready to move on to these action items?
Yeah. Dr. Wright, do you want me to have Dr. Bitter read that?
We'll start with 11A with Liz. Yes, Dr. Bitter can read that. Yes, that's fine.
This, we actually have, sorry, making sure, this is on the bond issue,
Dr.
correct?
Dr. Wright,
Yes.
Yes, okay. We have Rudy Segura and we have Julie McMillan here. Both have information regarding this that they have to present. If they could join in, I know they're on the meeting, but if they could join in audio-wise.
This is Rudy Segura with McCall Parkhurst. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all tonight, virtually speaking. I drafted the order before you. There is an updated version, but they both essentially say the same thing. They give Dr. Wright and Liz authority on behalf of the board to issue one, the remaining voted authorization of bonds from the 2017 election, and two, to refinance up to $30 million
We're not being able to hear you, Rudy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Julie isn't on.
I am on. I'm sorry.
oh,
I didn't hear you. I couldn't hear you, Rudy. I am on. Greg, do you also have a presentation that we sent to Liz to discuss the bond transaction?
I think she said you guys were going to screen share, or do you want me to pull that up?
I can share it from mine, Julie, if you need me to.
That would probably be better, Liz. I'm not. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, let me get it pulled up real quick. Okay, are you seeing
Yes,
the presentation now? Okay.
thank you.
Yes, if you'll just tell me when to switch screens, we'll be good.
Sure, why don't you go to page 2 and I'll do a quick little market update.
Is this correct?
It's still on page 1. Sorry, Liz.
Okay, it's changing on my end, so I'm guessing you're not seeing the page change.
We're not.
No.
I'm not.
Okay,
No, we're not. You can roll it. I can roll it down on mine.
let me stop sharing and see if I can.
Now
Well,
we're seeing your budget, Liz.
yeah, sorry.
And everything else on your screen, I think.
Okay, so maybe we can do the next agenda item for just a minute and I'll get this email to Greg.
Yeah, if you just want to send it to me, I can pull it up.
I will do that. Sorry about that.
Oh, it actually looks like the second item is yours as well.
I would be happy if y'all would like to just discuss really quickly the legal aspects of the bond order. If that's something y'all are interested in entertaining, it won't take long.
That's fine, Rudy.
All right. Well, I'm Rudy Seguda. I'm with McCall Parkhurst and Horton, the bond lawyers for the district. We're honored to be here. We did draft an order, and as y'all have in the past, and this has been just recent past, you know, once Argyle ISD or once any school district has at least, I think 5,000 students in ADA or $100 million, you become a sophisticated borrower, and you're allowed to do things like delegate authority to issue bonds, which is a good thing because it allows you to pick a date when your financial team thinks market conditions are most favorable, sell bonds as opposed to the day of the month that you happen to be having your regular board meeting. And so we've worked with, or Julie gave us some targets that we have to hit. These are parameters. And this is one bond order that actually authorizes two or more series of bonds. The intent is to have two series of bonds, one being for the new money and one being for the refinancing. And for new money, legally, what we have to do is we can't put more than $40,850,000 in your project fund because that's what's left of the voted authorization. 2, we can't go out past August 15, 2050. Legally, you can go out further than 30 years, but we're putting a 30-year limit on it. And 3, the true interest cost of the bonds, which is kind of the average interest rate, cannot be over 4.5%. For the refunding bonds, Liz or Dr. Wright could pull the trigger as long as we don't issue more than $30 million of bonds to take out the bonds. And per Texas law, it's kind of a dollar for dollar thing. If you got $26 million in bonds we're paying off, we can't issue more than $26 million to pay them off. We have to produce a present value debt service of a savings of at least 8%. The true interest cost for the refunding bonds cannot exceed 3.5%, and the bonds cannot go past the existing final maturity of the district's outstanding bonds, which is 2043. The other aspect is the new money bonds we fully expect to be tax exempt and to carry, all things considered, a lower rate. The refunding bonds we expect to be issued taxable. And, I think Julie will go into that in her presentation here, but for various reasons, there's school districts all over the state are rushing to market to issue taxable bonds. We're in a funky period in time where we can actually issue taxable bonds, pay off tax exempt bonds, and save y'all money. That's kind of the gist of the legal aspects. Again, as long as we can meet those parameters, and we can get Dr. Wright or Liz, your chief financial officer, to sign off, then we'll sell the bonds in the name of the district. And the plan is to execute this within the next, 30 to 90 days. And I'm sure, Julie and RBC will report back to the board with the results of any sale. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to update y'all in terms of the legal aspects of this since last year. And so unless y'all have any questions about any of the legalese in the order of it, I'll turn it back over.
Greg, this is Julie. Can you go to page 2 and I'll keep this brief, board. I know you have a lot of work to do.
Hey, well, I'm sorry, Julie. I'm sorry. While he's, can I ask Rudy a question? Because you went through all the requirements that are necessary to delegate that authority. But the first one I think you mentioned said that we had to have more than 5,000 students.
Oh.
Or $1 million of debt.
Or I'm sorry, how much million? How many?
100 million.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And actually, you guys can do a parameters order on a refunding, even if you didn't meet those criteria. It's really the new money transaction that requires you to be a sophisticated issuer to be able to use a parameters order. So, and you guys have used a parameters order as long as I've been working with. For the last decade, you guys have used a parameters order for both new money transactions and refunding transactions. So this is our normal course in terms of the way in which we have kind of entered the market and sold bonds with the district. So I'll do a quick market update, and then we'll talk a little bit about the refunding transaction and the new money transaction. So, it's been an interesting period for, I would say, the muni market. As you look at the equities on the muni market, as you look at the bottom 2 charts, you'll see, we were kind of on the rise going into 18, 19, 20. And then, of course, with COVID and the complete stop of the economy here in the US, we took a huge hit. And you'll see the equity markets have been trending back up as, the economy has kind of rebooted. But what's really happened in the bond market is that there's been a big flight to quality in the bond market. And so both US Treasury market and the municipal market have really trended lower really until about last week. We were at an all-time low last week in the bond market, and there's been a slight uptick in the last couple of days, largely due to, I think, the amount of transactions that are happening again. And so it's a great time to be an issuer. As Liz knows, it's a terrible time to try to invest money and generate any interest earnings from your cash on hand. So, Greg, if you want to go to page 2, let's see what page 2. We have a couple of pages on the market. You'll see in the bottom left hand corner, MMD as of late last week, August 7th, is that green line at the bottom. You'll see the 15-year average is that royal blue line on the top, and the previous all-time low, which was in July of 2016, is that kind of darker blue one in the middle. And MMD is the curve. It's the index curve on which we kind of spread all the tax-exempt municipal bonds. So the new money bonds are really priced off of that MMD curve. And so you'll see right now that, out of 30 years, you're just above a 1% really, which is really just uncommon to think that you can, borrow money for 30 years and be somewhere in that 2% range. So, and you'll see on the bottom right, the steady decline of the tax-exempt and taxable trends over the last several years. And that is partially the reason why the taxable advance refunding market is working so strongly for municipal issuers right now, is that the spread between the taxable yields that you would pay for taxable paper and the tax exempt is almost nothing. So the interest rates are right on top of each other, which is what makes taxable advance refunding opportunity attractive for really any issuer right now. You can skip down, Greg. This is the district's outstanding debt profile. It's pretty we show this chart almost every time we come and talk to you all about a bond transaction. It really just summarizes the debt that's outstanding right now for the district. The 3 series that are highlighted in blue are really the candidates that we're looking at for the taxable refunding. When they changed the tax law back in 17, right, Rudy, 17, 18, advance refundings on a tax exempt basis went away. And so what that means is you can't, refinance a municipal bond on a tax exempt basis until you're within 90 days of the call date of the bond. So you're limited in terms of your call flexibility in your portfolio without other tools. And so the idea that we can now, because of where spreads are and coupons are, we can now advance refund your bonds on a taxable basis is really pretty amazing. And what that allows us to do is really look at bonds whose call date may not be for several years and find those that are attractive for refunding now. And because, we never know where the interest rates are going to be in 6 months or 2 years, if the refunding is really substantial enough and you can generate a good amount of savings for the district, really any issuer, we're always telling people to look at these opportunities and to evaluate both the pluses and the minuses of those opportunities, and to generate a lot of savings and lock in that return to the district is always, an attractive option. So there's some highlights down there about your outstanding portfolio. They really often come from your the Moody's rating on the bonds that you have outstanding, and you are in a AA3 category. We wouldn't expect that to change right now. Growth in the TAV base and reducing the outstanding debt burden are going to be the 2 biggest things that Moody's kind of continues to focus on for the district. And since we don't expect debt to kind of stop anytime soon, what we really need to watch is the growth coming in. And you all have achieved growth that we have been projecting over the last several years. So I think we're keeping things right in line where it will continue to result in a AA3 rating from Moody's. So. Greg, you can go down again. This is just the debt profile as it looks graphically. It just helps kind of to see where the debt is and how it flows out annually for the district. You can skip down another page. This is the refunding analysis. So, we basically looked at your outstanding debt and are looking at candidates whose call dates are in the next 3 to 5 years. We have selected in this case, it's about 19 million in bonds, but we've left ourselves some room for additional refunding capacity if rates allow for other bonds to be attractive for refunding. It's really, there's a marriage between the call date being too far out and the coupon rate of the refunded bonds. So in this case, we're looking at a refunding of about 19.9 million right now. There are some cabs in that, in the 11 and in 13 series, they were refunding bonds. So we probably use cabs in those transactions for par-to-par test reasons. We will have to use some cabs again in this refunding, most likely for par-to-par reasons with the AG's office. And if you go down, Greg, to the next page, what we do is we look at the refunding, we look at that bucket of bonds, we kind of, lay out the prior debt service of all that 19 million, and then we structure a new series of bonds in which you're going to have kind of savings. So you'll see in that far right table, this generates about $5.3 million in savings, about $240,000 a year. It has a net PV savings of 4.2 million, which is really about 18% of the value of the bonds at delivery. That's really strong savings. Really kind of astonishing on a taxable advance refunding that we can generate that. So, and there may be a little bit of wiggle room in there for some additional bonds. So we will keep watching it as we move forward with the transaction. The one thing you'll note in blue down there in that projected summary of refunding results is a little number called negative arbitrage. We're always monitoring that on an advance refunding because there is a little bit of an inefficiency when you sell refunding bonds and you put the proceeds in a savings account or an escrow account, and it has to pay the debt service on those refunded bonds until the call date. And that inefficiency is kind of a measure between what you're earning in the escrow account, which is always less than what we pay on the refunding bonds. And so, we're always mindful of negative arbitrage, and we try to throw that number in there as a way of letting you all look at that inefficiency. And we're really comfortable when that number is below 50%. We're even more comfortable when that number is in the 30% and below range. So right now, the negative arbitrage is right where we like it to be. And our thought is that locking in that savings is substantial, and the what you leave on the table and that inefficiency is insignificant. And a slight change in the interest rates, 20 or 25 basis points, could reduce your savings substantially. And so over time, it's there's a lot of risk by waiting to try to refund the bonds currently, and there is less risk by locking in that refunding now and kind of giving up on the negative arbitrage. So we think this refunding is strong. There's been, I don't even know, countless taxable refundings over the last 2 months. It's just amazing how many are getting done. So you will be in you have a lot of neighbors doing this, and you're not going to be an outlier out there trying to do a taxable advance refunding. Okay, Greg, you can skip down. This next page provides some summary information about the issuance of the new money transaction. Again, we're looking at selling the last tranche of authorization that you have from the 2017 election. It's $40,850,000 left in authorization. And we kind of structure it based on these assumptions around your TAB growth and, other local revenue and tax collection information. And so this is the summary of those things. And like in the past, I think you guys have done this several times, we will need to get a future TAB letter from DCAD, since we structure the district's debt portfolio kind of into the growth that you guys have been having for so long. We still need to pass the 50-cent test. And to do that, we have traditionally gotten a future TAB letter from DCAD, and we are working with them on that right now. So we hope to have that in hand really by the end of the week. So if you go to the next page, Greg. These are a few more of the assumptions around, interest rates that we've used in here, call features, cost of issuance, that kind of thing. And again, this notice that the strategy to affect the sale of the 2020 school building bonds would be to approve this parameters order, and that would allow us to work with Dr. Wright and Liz to kind of get the bonds to market. You can go to the next page, Greg. This is your TAB assumptions around growth that we use in the bond plan. The royal blue, the dark blue in the front are ones that were historic when we started the 2017 authorization. That kind of middle blue is ones that have come to fruition since we started the bond plan. The purple is what we really kind of project pretty extensively with the demographers and with DCAD. And then the gray are kind of some simple additional assumptions that we kick out there for a few more years, really as part of our planning for the next election, is kind of looking at growth more than 2 or 3 years out. So you can go to the next page, Greg. If that one shows up. There it goes. It's going to take a little while. So this is the bond plan that really kind of shows you, you'll see column C, we lay in the savings of the refunding. Column D is the anticipated structure on the new money transaction. And then that results in a kind of total projected combined debt service number. We then, layer in some of our assumptions around some other local revenue that the district brings in, the part of the frozen TAB bucket that goes toward debt service, some other revenue in terms of delinquent taxes and interest income and those things. We are planning to use a little bit of fund balance, particularly in 21 and maybe in 22, depending on where TAV comes in, so that we can sell this last tranche of bonds and maintain your 4850 tax rate. And you'll see that we plan to keep a 4850 tax rate through 2023, with the expectation that there'll be an election at some point in 23 again. And you'll see in 24, we kind of begin to have a step down in the tax rate, and that's really to build in capacity for the next elections, the next election and the next bond sales. If you look at column L, which is the change in frozen TAV levy, you'll see the 20 and 21 TAV are that 20 is true, certified value. The 21 is the preliminary certified value. I don't know, it's a modified preliminary certified value that you got from DCAD. We're working with Liz to use the lower value that you all have from DCAD to try to structure this. We'll just monitor it as we go. Hopefully that comes in higher after all the property that's still under protest gets settled out. And all that will do is just create more capacity for the future elections. So, and if we have a much higher TAV in 21, we'll use less fund balance to pay the debt service. So you can go to the next page, Greg. This is a timetable for the transaction. You can see that large blue bar. If we approve the order tonight, we'll move forward with distributing the preliminary documents, getting the rating, working with the underwriters with the plan of having a bond sale on September 15th and delivering the proceeds of the bonds on October 14th. And that's it. Any questions?
Julie, an obvious question, I guess, is this sounds like the perfect time. Is there any how would you characterize the downside, to the extent there is any, of doing what you're talking about doing?
Probably one of the downsides on the advance refunding is that, let's say the district were to grow just wildly 20-30% over the next the next 2 years before we plan for the election. You don't have a lot of tools in your tool belt to maintain your 4850 tax rate. There's still some. We can do some things that would allow you to have enough debt service to maintain that tax rate. They might not be the most efficient things in the world, but we would have some. So taking out those, near callable bonds, that's really probably the one thing that we're doing, is we're limiting a little bit your flexibility for your tax rate management in your portfolio. There are other tools, so I'm not trying to, I'm not worried about it, but those tools might not be super efficient when we go to use them.
But that doesn't sound like a risk that, based on our present demographic projections, and then maybe even adding some to that, we would still be within a safe harbor, if you will. It sounds like, on the concern you're describing. So
yes, I would agree. So we have options for you if there is a substantial amount of growth beyond what we're projecting, and it would, calculate to a lower tax rate, and you all want to maintain that, because it's certainly easier going into election to kind of keep the tax rate and not kind of go down and then ask people to go back up again. There's ways we can help you do that. So it's not a substantial risk. I would agree with you, Brad.
okay, and just real quickly, the tapping into the fund balance, and Liz, this might be for you too, but is that a manageable thing? I presume we're not talking about something that's going to bust the budget.
That's correct. Our fund balance is healthy on our INS fund balance. This would not be general fund at all. It would be INS related. And so it would be specifically the INS fund balance. And we do have the funds in there for the projections that Julie has presented.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Julie. All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve action item 11A as presented.
I'll move that we approve action item 11A as presented.
Dr. McDade, motion to approve. I have a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Williams, second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously 7-0. With Dr. McDade, motion to approve, and Mr. Williams, motion to second.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Rudy.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
11B is Liz's presentation of the budget summary and proposed budget.
Do you want me to pull this up, Liz, or do you want to try and share this one?
I think we'll let you pull it up since I wasn't sharing successfully earlier. Can you pull up the second one? Thank you. And you can go to the second page. Okay, this is mainly a recap of what we've already talked about in our budget workshops and the budget presentations over the last couple of months, with some information of changes along the way. Just kind of a review. We had House Bill 3 in the last legislative sessions. The biggest change on the revenue on the impact is the change from prior year to current year values, and we discussed how that affects our district. It's a significant impact on a fast growth district, but it's also an impact on our timing. And we'll get into that a little bit more here in just a minute on how it's affecting our timing for this year. There's a new process for tax rate adoption that was also in House Bill 3 that started this year. We've got updated guidance from TEA on a hold harmless ADA that they're issuing for this year, and then a couple of updated expenditure estimates from our previous presentations. Okay, the tax rate timeline for House Bill 3, and we did go over this a little bit before, but there's quite a big some implications here for our district, so I do want to go over this again. So there was a local property value survey. It opened July 18th and closed August 1st. We were required to submit certified values. Appraisal districts were supposed to issue certified values by the 25th of July. Then TEA would calculate and make available our MCRs, which is the maximum compressed rate, by August 5th. And then we had till the 11th of August to submit an appeal with the deadline of August 31st for any information on that appeal to be submitted to TEA. Once we receive a certified MCR from TEA, we could proceed with publishing our tax notice for a public hearing. Go ahead, Greg. Okay, our appraisal district, Central Appraisal District, they encountered several issues in preparing our certified values this year. I mean, it wasn't just our AISD, these were all districts in Denton County. So their issues were and some key personnel that were new this year in their positions there. And in that, they had a software change. That software conversion had been in place for over a year. It couldn't be stopped at that point. So it wasn't the best year for a software conversion when you combine that with the impacts of COVID. They weren't able to do any protest in person. Everything had to be online. And they also had quite a few more protests. Typically our number of protests go up each year, as with other districts. So they had quite a few issues. They were unable to issue our certified values on the 25th as expected. There was something put in place in the tax law that said they could issue a certified estimate if they were unable to produce the certified values. And so that's what Denton Appraisal District did for all of their districts. 28% of our values are still under protest at that point with those numbers. In comparison to a certified estimate, certified value would be at 90, we would be at 95%. So we would only have 5% that were still under protest. So there's an amount that's called the lower value used in comparison to the next net taxable that's still under review. There's a $131 million difference for Argyle ISD, which is, you know, a significant difference between those two numbers. The difference in, if you look at the lower value versus what's in the certified estimate, it could be anywhere from a 12 to 18% difference in our increase from last year's certified value. So it is a significant impact for us. So in that, you know, we weren't alone. Again, there were all districts in Denton County. Greg, go ahead to the next one. So, you know, we talked with our tax attorney. We also spoke with, you know, reached out to the appraisal district. We reached out to the Denton County Tax Office. They talked with some tax attorneys they had contact with, sent us some information, and then I've been in contact with the several of the Denton school districts, and we've all kind of been in collaboration on how it affects each individual district and what our options were. So we decided to issue an MCR appeal to TEA. We issued that by the deadline. We were asking, in that appeal, what we're asking for is we're asking that TEA extend the deadline of the appeal beyond 8/31. We understand that we won't have certified values until September 15th, possibly. So we wanted that appeal extended, that deadline extended, so we could submit more accurate numbers to TEA to get a more accurate MCR. We believe that the difference in the certified estimates and the certified values has a potential for 1.6 cent impact on our MCR rate. And, you know, we've been in consultation with TEA along the way. We don't believe that they were going to extend the deadline, but we felt that we needed to follow the process of the appeal. That was the most fair thing to our taxpayers and the most fair thing to our district. So we have submitted that appeal. And so as a result of this process, we're not going to recommend our tax rate for adoption until our September board meeting. TEA has already responded to us, and they have responded to the other districts in Denton County that I know of that have submitted appeals, and they have not extended the deadline beyond 8/31. They've granted our appeals, but haven't extended the deadline. So, in fact, they gave us an 8/27 deadline, and so before then, we will receive, you know, whatever new data there is that Denton Appraisal District has, and we will submit the most current data at that point, and that we'll roll those numbers in and see how that does in our tax rate. So what we did was we published with the full 1.6 cent on our tax rate, because as long as we published our notice at the highest rate that we could adopt, then if the MCR comes in lower and we have an actual lower rate, then we do not have to publish again and we can proceed in September. So that's kind of where we are on our tax rate. Go ahead, Greg. And this is just a reminder of how the maximum compressed tax rate is calculated. There's a threshold for what can be the highest MCR and a threshold for the lowest in the calculation there. And we are looking at our current MCR that's been approved by TEA is 0.8407, which gives us a preliminary M&O tax rate of 0.9337. So that's what we have in all of our information at this point. The only thing that it would go down, that would have changed, could potentially go down up to 1.6 cents from there, depending on what the information that we have, the most updated information on our certified values. Okay. All right. Our ADA, of course, is always a big part of our budgeting process and our revenue. We have received guidance from TEA that they're going to give us a hold harmless. Their original hold harmless was 1% over the ADA of the prior year, and for any growing district, that doesn't take into account anything, any new ADA that we expect from this year. So they have decided that it will be a 3-year average of final numbers on the ADA and FTE numbers, and it's going to go from 17-18 to the 19-20 school years. They've already published that data, and our hold harmless ADA for the first 6 weeks of 2021 is 38.18. That will actually help our budget, and we should see some benefit out of that. Of course, we won't know until we get a better grasp of where our enrollment is after the first few weeks of school, and we can kind of project out from there what the remaining 4-6 weeks will be. but we were able to adjust our budget a little bit with that number that TEA published. All right. Okay, and this is just a graph y'all seen before in some of your workshops, just a reminder of how our general fund revenue is distributed out. The majority of that at 70% is local property taxes, followed by state at 28%, and then very, very little of other or federal funds. And then we've got just some reminders on our expenditures. You know, the biggest expenditure for us is personnel, really for any school district is personnel. Just a reminder of the new positions that were added for this year, 21 teachers, 2 assistant principals, a part-time public relations, and 6 para and auxiliaries. We did put a couple of the para and auxiliaries on hold until later in the budget to see how we're doing and see if those are actually feasible to add this year. So we did have, and we talked about this in our workshop, we went through the additional budget requests that the campuses and departments could put in. As a result, we'd included 132,000 of those. 304,000 we included in a delayed category that we could come back in and add later in the year. Again, we're waiting to see. It's you know, we've seen some relief from TEA in our first 6 weeks of ADA, but it's going to depend on how COVID affects the remainder of our ADA for the year. Some of those were, you know, the band instruments that are requested each year. We had some camera additions, some mower and maintenance items that are going to be needed because we will begin maintaining such a larger area once we take over the high school next summer, where the middle school is now. We'll have quite a few more acreage there that we have to maintain. We also went back and added a PPE budget. Y'all know that we've gone through the process of TEA has distributed some initial PPE. We have purchased some as a district, but in order to make it through the year, we will have to purchase more items. The majority of what I can see us purchasing throughout the year are going to be more hand sanitizer, potentially more gloves, wipes, and disinfectant spray. Those will probably be ongoing items, and we'll just monitor our inventory and order as needed. But we did need a line item in our budget for that. And then we have a cleaning and sanitizing increase in our custodial budget there. Okay, this is the summary that you're used to looking at. It kind of gives you the current year, where we're at on our amended budget versus what we're looking at for next year's proposed budget. The difference, gives you the difference in the enrollments, the ADAs, the M&O tax rates, and then walks you through each one of the revenue lines. You can see we're going from about 33.6 million to 36.6 million. Go to the next one, please, Greg. And then you can see by our functions where the increases are. And of course, we have large increases in our instruction where we're adding teachers as we're growing. We've got increases in our, pretty decent increase in our plant maintenance and operations. That's where our custodial staff is. Any type of projects that were included, any type of, if we had any type of utilities that needed to be adjusted, and those things. So we are proposing a balanced budget. But what I do want to remind you at this point is, again, I feel like this year, more than any, we are uncertain of our ADA. Again, TA has given us a 6 weeks hold harmless, but with everything that's going on with COVID and the impact that can have on our enrollment, I do feel like that is something that we will monitor. We always monitor, but we're going to monitor more closely. We will have to monitor several more items of expenditure areas that could or could not have some impacts. So I do feel like we might have more significant and larger and a higher volume of budget amendments that we potentially could bring to you throughout the year. I just feel like we have quite a few more unknowns than we normally do. But at this point in time, the best we can project, we have a balanced budget. Okay, Greg. Okay, student nutrition is another budget that you're being asked to approve tonight. Amy presented price increases at our campuses. We have food cost increases. And then Our sales could decrease, of course, based on our virtual versus in-person enrollment. This is going to be another budget that we will have to monitor closely throughout the year. We have projected revenue as best we can with taking into the virtual students out of projections, and then expenditures based on food costs, how many of those what type of meals they're going to have to provide each day. So this is another one that could see some amendments throughout the year. Go ahead, Greg. At this time, again, it's a balanced budget, but there is potential here for loss in sales revenue. If sales do decline, then we will see reduced cost in food, but we will not, more than likely, we won't see a reduced payroll cost at this time because those staff are hired for the year. But if sales go down, we can decrease at least what the food costs are. Okay, and the next one is going to be our INS budget, which is our interest and sinking fund, and that was the presentation that you just heard over issuing the refunding and issuing the third and final bond issuance on our 2017 bonds. That third bond sale is included in this proposal, and the tax rate would remain the same. So we'd be at 48.5 cents, and we would remain that way for next year. Again, we're not asking you to approve the tax rate tonight, but that is what is being proposed. And there's just a quick shot of the interest and sinking budget. It's just under 13 million for next year, and again at a balanced budget. Okay, do any of you have questions on that? I know that was kind of a quick look, but again, that was just a recap summary and then some changes from what we've talked about in the past along the way.
Hey, Liz.
Yes, ma'am.
It's Leona. You said that the preliminary M&O tax rate was 93.37, but you said it could go up as much as 1.6. I mean, that's a...
It actually could, the only thing it could do is go down at this point, 1.6 cents.
Oh, okay, down. Thank you. Okay, that's okay. That makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, got it. Okay. So what you're doing is you're going with the highest right now.
Yes, ma'am. As long as we publish the highest rate, then we don't go back through the notice process or the hearing process, because as long as we go with something equal to or lower when we adopt it.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Liz, one question I had that you might not be aware of, but so we're obviously going to spend a lot more on personal protective equipment, on sanitizers, et cetera. Do we have any expectations that we might get reimbursed for that in the long run by the federal government?
We do have some, and we're coding everything separately, so that we can track everything. And we're trying to pay attention as much any information that comes out through TEA. That's where all of our federal dollars would be funneled through.
Okay.
We did receive some, I believe it was 37,000 in this past year, but of course that was the state took away state funding and replaced it with federal funding. So that really wasn't an increase on that side. There are a couple of things out there right now that we're monitoring. We do know there's some items that we will not qualify under anything that's currently out for reimbursement. There is a chance that some of our sanitizing that is above and beyond our normal cleaning process could be eligible for some reimbursement. And if it is eligible, it would be 75% of it would be eligible for reimbursement. Those applications actually applications are open, but they are not due right now. And so we are following along with many other districts, trying to make sure that we're all on top of the information of what may or may not qualify, and submit the best possible chance of what we can at getting anything back, if anything.
Okay, so right now in the budget, you've put in the expenses, but you have not assumed any reimbursement.
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then Greg, if you could pull up that's the first, I believe it's the summary for approval. What we're actually asking you to approve tonight is in this form. we ask for you to approve it by fund and function. And so we have on here our general operating fund, our student nutrition fund, our debt service fund, and then we have the technology one-to-one fund, which we discussed, I believe, in the spring that there would no longer be a fee for Chromebook usage, but we still do have some funds in there to expend this year on repairs and some replacement Chromebooks, and so that is what you see in that technology one-to-one fund, and why you see that as a deficit, because we will be using the fund balance in that fund to finish out that fund.
Greg, can you put the agenda back up, please? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 11B as presented.
Mr. Slayton, I will move that we approve action item 11B in form and function.
Right, Mr. Deffenbaugh, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. McDade, second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. The action item carries unanimously with the motion to approve by Mr. Deffenbaugh and the second by Dr. McDade.
Okay, the next item, Dr. Stevers put together. This is in order to, because it's over 25,000, we will be required to bring it to the board. She'll explain about how this is funding from Kate funds and from AMA money.
Yeah, okay, so the first one is Project Lead the Way expenses, and this is for the 7th and 8th grade STEM classes that we have moved over to under Project Lead the Way. So these courses will generate CTE funds, and the supplies for those courses for the year totals $35,955.75, and we currently have CTE funds to pay for these supplies, but since it is over 25,000, we need your permission to make this purchase. So these are supplies for the 2 STEM classes at the middle school, the Project Lead the Way classes, and that will be generating CTE funds also.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Stever? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 11C as presented.
I make a motion we approve action item 11C as presented.
Mr. Hawksworth, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dr. Bitter, second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item 11C carries unanimously with Mr. Hawksworth motion to approve and Dr. Bitter second.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is we're looking at an iStation purchase. And so we've used iStation for reading intervention for, it was used before I got here, but it's been used since I've got here. So I'm not sure exactly how long it's been used, but we have always, the cost has always been under 25,000. And so now just with our enrollment and our number of students, it has increased to above 25,000. So this purchase is for $29,450, and this money comes from IMA funds or instructional allotment funds. And so this doesn't affect the overall budget in any way. We have this money sitting in IMA funds, just waiting to expend. So this is for, reading intervention for K through 8, $29,450.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Stever? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve action item 11D as presented.
I move we approve 11D as presented.
Mr. Williams, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Dr. McDade, second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item 11D carries unanimously with Mr. Williams' motion to approve and Dr. McDade second.
Okay, so I have our next item. If you'll remember, I believe it's 2 years ago now, we did a connection to Argyle West to get that campus up and going. It was the same agreement that looked in this form. Because of the consortium that we are a part of with Region 11, we get an added discount above and beyond what we would normally qualify for E-rate. Districts like Fort Worth ISD are in this consortium, so the funding, the rebate funding effectively goes off of economically disadvantaged percentages. So with Fort Worth ISD and some of those other districts in there, it drives our rebate or our discounted cost significantly up. These are for connections that will be coming into our new admin building so that that admin building can serve as the network operations center and connect the rest of the district. It'll also house our internet connection coming into there when that is up as well. We do have an item on here also for, let's see, our other elementary that we will be building. And of course, we do not pay for this construction until it actually starts, and we need it as just on the agreement because we get a additional discount on price doing these circuits. Just for reference, I did look up earlier in the meeting just so that I could give you some numbers. For the west connection, we paid roughly $50,000, which is a great price as well. And if you'll remember, our connection that currently goes to our middle school was a Denton County and Denton ISD collaboration. They were already running fiber to their new court building, and they were able to sell us some of the fibers in their existing fiber that they were putting in. And just for reference, and that was actually a great deal when we did it, but for that connection we paid, I have it up here somewhere, we ended up paying $129,000 just for that single connection. So just to kind of bring everything in reference, for 6 fiber connections we're paying $237.96 total.
Greg, I'm assuming this can be part of the bond money.
Yes, I'm glad you actually said that, because I talked to Liz, and I need to explain to you as well. The money that will be used from this, some of it will be the technology portion of the 2017 bond that was labeled for fiber optic connections, and then some of these connections will be paid for out of construction of their appropriate school building. So for example, that third elementary, there is money built into that construction project for that connection. So that one would come out of its own construction cost, whereas anything not associated to new construction would come out of the fiber optic line item in the 2017 technology portion of the bond.
Okay, thanks.
And I do have, just for reference, I have 250,000 in that portion of that bond that we have not touched. So this, of course, not even being 250,000, but some portions of it coming out of the construction will be well under budget for that line item that I have.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Any other further questions? Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve action item 11E as presented.
I would move that we approve action item 11 as presented.
Mr. Deffenbaugh, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Either way.
Dr. McDade with the second. Mr. Lowry with the third. All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item carries unanimously with Mr. Deffenbaugh, motion to approve. Dr. McDade, second.
Okay, the updated ABM contract, can you put that up, please, Greg?
Is there a specific page that you want?
Chris Daniel's going to be talking about this. You can go to the next page.
You want me to go ahead and start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Back in 2012, 2013, that school year, our district, along with many others, had to make budget cuts due to the funding cuts that took place during that legislative session. One of our cost-saving measures was to start to skip clean, which means cleaning classrooms every other day at the intermediate, middle school, and high school campus. And we've been doing that for the past 8 years. But due to the virus, we feel like we need to, and we already have been, start cleaning those rooms every day on every campus. In addition to what we're already doing at Hilltop and at Ardell West. And so doing that is going to increase our contract for this school year, $131,000, $108,000. And Tommy is here to answer any questions about staffing, and we'll just take any questions that you might have.
Liz, is this additional?
Oh, it's included in the budget.
Okay. Liz,
sorry, I forgot to
this,
put that in there.
That's all right. Is this something that you would earmark as well for potential reimbursement from federal government due to COVID?
Yes, we're earmarking anything that is an increase for us, and just waiting, to see and keep watching the guidelines to see what we can and cannot submit.
Is this type of cleaning, Chris, you mentioned that, I guess 9 years ago we were cleaning every day. So is this type of cleaning getting back to a standard, or is this, are there additional, steps being taken due to COVID that increase the cost as well?
This is going back to the standard that we had before the budget cuts. But we are also, as an add-on to this, which is not included in this tonight, this contractor, we're also looking at some enhanced cleaning that takes place in addition to this. That is also included in the budget that goes beyond this, just basic service.
Chris, did we ever receive any savings or rebate based on the lack of cleaning over the spring semester?
Yes, we did. 25,000 was what we received.
Okay.
Chris, can you talk a little bit more about the enhanced cleaning you were talking about? Because I did look through these and look for those campuses that are now going to be daily cleanings. I know that Dr. Wright mentioned that we as a district were purchasing electrostatic misters, that ABM was going to use those. I know that there are some situations where certain products you can use that affixes to the surfaces, and then you don't need to clean it for 3 months. So it seems like there might be an option to use the electrostatic misters that we've already purchased, and that ABM, I understand, is going to run them for us, but that if we use certain products, there wouldn't need to be an additional wiping down of surfaces and things of that nature. So we might actually save money versus spending more.
Tommy, can you talk about the chemicals that they're using? I know we're also using these on the buses as well.
Right, we have something that's called BioShield Sanitizer 440, and it is a 3-month surface adhesion. It does stay on the surface for 3 months. However, we feel like that, we're still going to continue to clean with that daily, just to make sure that we're, anytime somebody touches that surface, I don't feel comfortable enough to say that disinfectant spray is going to continue to clean for 3 months. But we're going to, go above and beyond and clean that daily. My understanding with the ABM electrostatic sprayers is that they have their own. We are not supplying them with our electrostatic sprayers. We are supplying our staff with electrostatic sprayers because ABM has their own. We have given each of the schools one, and we have given each of the high intensity areas that we feel like need a little extra, like high school band, high school athletics in 2 or 3 different places, middle school band, middle school athletics. Those are all going to get one as well, so that if they feel like they need to use those and do a little extra, it's an easy, quick thing. They just fill up that electrostatic sprayer and spray, and it sticks to all the surfaces.
And so, Tommy, who's the bio product that you mentioned? ABM's doing
No,
that, or a
this
combination of both of us are doing that?
No. So the responsibility of ABM is to have an extra person at each campus to do enhanced cleaning on high touch surface areas throughout the day, all day long, as well as what they had been doing all the time. On top of that, they're going to electrostatic spray every classroom nightly. So that's nightly. At the end of the day, every day, they're going to electrostatic spray every classroom nightly. So those are the 2 things that are going to be added by them that is going to really enhance our, hopefully, survival of this COVID epidemic.
So I applaud you for going above and beyond. And I'm not an expert. I just have a question. If we have a product that claims on their spec sheet that it adheres for 3 months, I have a couple of questions. I think some of the research that I've done says that if you come in and apply daily chemicals to wipe it, you're actually taking that off. And then secondly, if it applies to 3 months, why do we need to do it? Why do we need to incur the additional expense of doing it every night?
Okay, so ABM's cleaner is different than what I've mentioned. The disinfectant that we have purchased is the sanitizer 440, and we've got that from iOffice. That is something that our district has purchased, and that's that 3-month surface. So with ABM's chemical, theirs is a little bit different. Theirs is going to be able to be used daily as a disinfectant, a daily disinfectant. So I'm just talking about the stuff that we have purchased. But what they are using nightly is a daily disinfectant spray. And I can get you the information on what that exactly is called. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay.
Tommy, quick question.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand this clearly. The estimated cost for the additional service is $131,108.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says the annual cost associated with our recommendation is $773,168. So I'm assuming that first number is included in the second number. It's just raising it to the second number.
Okay, I'll refer to Liz on this. I believe that is correct.
No, that's correct. That is correct.
Okay.
The original, yeah, that's correct.
And that's in the budget right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any other questions?
Not a question, but I will echo kind of what Mr. Hawksworth mentioned is if there's a product available out there that offers 3-month protection, why don't we encourage ABM to use it? If it's extra cost, it's not 90.
Mr. Deffenbaugh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of it.
Well, I just mentioned that why don't we encourage ABM to use the product that offers 90-day protection with their electrostatic sprayers.
Because then they can charge us for all the gallons they're using every night. Sorry.
But at that point, we don't need them to do it every night. It's not good, safe product.
I mean, I feel like that, you know, a daily cleaning is necessary. As many hands that are touching the desks and all the surfaces that are high touch points. I mean, just in my opinion, I don't feel like that a 3-month chemical is going to really work for 3 months. I believe it does need to happen daily.
Fair point, but why buy the 3-month chemical? If it's extra cost, why are we buying that?
That's something that we purchased as a district, and it wasn't very expensive. I believe it was $730 for 12 containers of it. So that's going to last us for a whole year.
All right, thanks. That's good. That's a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 11F as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve action item 11F as presented.
Mr. Lowry, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Williams, second. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, action item 11F carries unanimously with Mr. Lowry motion to approve and Mr. Williams second.
Thank you.
Okay, 11G. The town of Argyle needs to acquire 2 properties from Argyle ISD. One is referred to in their offer as parcel 2, and it's the roundabout at John Payne. And the other is parcel 3, and it is the right of way outside of Unity Park. And the board has looked at both of these in a previous board meeting. And parcel 2, we have not gotten a counter offer on from TNP, but parcel 3 is at the appraised value. And so title company wants this particular statement that I, as superintendent, have authority to sign the documentation for the title company. So this exact statement saying I'm authorized to sign on behalf of AISD just on that one parcel, on parcel 3, is required. And I've been asked to provide them with that. So I put it on the agenda in this format to get that approval.
So, Dr. Wright, this is the parcel that is in front of the intermediate school?
Yes, that is correct, to the north.
Okay. And did they respond? I remember when the gentleman from TMP and the former mayor were on a WebEx call with us talking about this. We asked about the 50 plus trees that will be removed and what they plan, how they plan to replace those trees and where they plan to replace them as part of their tree board within the council.
Right, and they have not given me, at first they said there were no trees, and then when I further questioned that, they said that there was a mitigation plan, but I have not received that. No, I do not have a mitigation plan for the trees.
So I personally don't have an issue with giving you the authority to sign on behalf of the district for that parcel, but I would personally request that we don't do that until the board or you and whoever you deem has had the ability to look at that tree mitigation plan and deem it acceptable.
Right, okay, that's fine. I mean, I agree with that. So you could just add to this that, once the mitigation plan on the trees was acceptable.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other questions, comments? Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve action item 11G with the addition that an acceptable mitigation plan is presented for the tree removal.
So moved.
All right, Mr. Hawksworth, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Dr. Bitter, second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Action item 11G passes unanimously with a motion by Mr. Hawksworth and a second by Dr. Bitter.
Okay, and the, next action item is a second reading of, the update, the local policy update. It's presented by Tasby.
This is what you wanted Dr. Bitter to read.
Correct.
I think it's just 632 pages. It should be okay.
Which language would you like me to read it in?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 11H, second reading, policy update 115 as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Hawksworth, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
So seconded.
All right, Dr. McDade, so seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Action item 11H passes unanimously. Mr. Hawksworth, motion to approve. Dr. McDade, second. Okay. And at this time, it is 9:27 p.m. and we are adjourned. I thank you all for your time. And thank you all for a great start to the school year.